You've got quite the fan club. How does that feel?
Oh, it's so lovely. It's so lovely to know that sort of wherever you go in the world, there's somebody who's sort of lovingly showing up to support what you've been making, even though they don't know what that is yet. So,
And what have they got in store coming in to watch The Institute tonight?
The Institute is obviously a Stephen King story, who is such a master storyteller, and this particular one sort of defies genre, really. It's certainly horrifying, but I wouldn't describe it as horror. It's a sort of simmering, slow burn thriller, psychological sci-fi nightmare, really.
And someone was saying earlier, maybe the fact that it's some of his newer work. So it has some of the hallmarks of what makes a classic Stephen King story, but it's maybe reflecting on some more contemporary issues. So is that quite appealing?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I think Stephen King is one of the first people to kind of come up with these things that feel a little bit like tropes because you've seen them in other things, but the idea of kind of kids with their very special powers kind of being abused is not something that's particularly new, but the way it's told and what it actually sort of represents in sort of telepathy representing the way we communicate, and telekinesis representing the secret powers that we don't really even know that we have, and using those powers and patience and hope to challenge, establishments, and to challenge, unchecked authority, really, I think that's very clear. And the structure of the book and also the show is kind of interesting, how it kind of forces you to engage with it and to question it. And I love that about it.
And what can you tell us about Tim and your way into playing him? I guess, he's quite a haunted man, quite world-weary, but he's maybe looking for something to reignite something inside him, something else to believe in.
Yes, he certainly has a heaviness to him and a haunted quality, and he's sort of quietly looking for some solace and peace and a reset in his life, and finds his way to this small town, and that's not what he finds, because I think he understands and realizes that once this pilot light gets relit, he is somebody who finds it impossible not to be triggered by injustice, and is somebody who has to kind of be there for people. And it was nice for me, after playing, psychopaths and villains and crazies for a few years, to find someone who's sort of clutching hard onto their moral compass.
And what about working opposite Joe? I mean, it's hard to believe he's quite sort of new to this work, and how he takes on this role of Luke is just incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was his sort of first proper job. He's such a little star, and from the first minute I met him, you could tell he's got such a beautiful blend of power and vulnerability and spark. And within 5 minutes of the first read through that we did, I gave him a little wink, and he sort of exhaled like it was going to be all right, and it was all right.
And when you're watching something that's so sort of high intensity and sort of, has you in its grip, I always wonder what it's like for you actors, whether it feels like that on set, or do you get to have sort of a bit of downtime?
I think it's sort of different things that challenge you, and that sometimes as an actor, to the actual tension of a scene. Of course, that's something you can definitely feel in the atmosphere of a room, especially if it's going how you hope it will. But sometimes it's the physical things you have to put yourself through, or frustrating things. I had a scene in this where I'm negotiating, tape, cling film, diapers, blood, just trying to negotiate these things and stay, in the moment. Sometimes those things can be more challenging than actual sort of emotional tension, but that's kind of the whole job, is to be mindful and present and stitch together these little moments to make something compelling.
And working with Jack and Ben, I mean, what an incredible creative team, and what did they bring to the experience?
Well, it was such a treat to be able to sit down and not only watch, kind of obviously been a big fan of Jack's work with Lost, and Ben's work on writing on Homeland and these series that I've loved, but to be able to sit down and watch a Stephen King adaptation that Jack Ben had directed and edited so beautifully and crafted into something that works so well, it gives you real confidence and trust that going in, the Stephen King adaptation that you're going to make with them is going to work, and you can focus, more on your job.
And in terms of the takeaways, I mean, they're only getting the first episode tonight, but from the show as a whole, I mean, maybe there is something cathartic about being in the grips of a thriller like this, but also you can come out with some thought-provoking questions about systems of abuse and how we do treat the vulnerable. And sometimes we're not, standing up to power or questioning things enough.
Do you know what I find really interesting is that actually, as thoughtful as I like to be about the characters and the stories and the structures and very involved with Ben in terms of in terms of making sure that the dialogue feels incisive and thoughtful and present, and that it really fits the characters. Sometimes it takes a bit of time and reflection and talking actually to people like yourself about it with insightful questions of what they think it might be or hope it might be or wonder if it is, and it actually makes me think about it in different ways and be able to sort of pull out my own perspective on what the story actually might have done. Sometimes it does it without you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. Really enjoy tonight, enjoy this moment, and really have a good time. Thanks so much. Thank you.